the sort of tease this up for the next thought that we have here. There were a couple of these on CNN where you have Ellie Honig, and then later on you had Manu Raju, who were like, this is going to tarnish Joe Biden's legacy. And it's like, his legacy of genocide and greasing the skids back to Donald Trump, like, and his legacy of being so arrogant and narcissistic that he was happy to allow his party to lose, and was happy apparently to stay in the race even when he was being told he was going to lose 400 electoral college votes to Donald Trump. Like, what legacy are we talking about here? In any case, here is Ellie Honig making that point.
This is as broad as a pardon can possibly be. Ordinarily, a pardon will specify a certain case, and that happened here. It says, I hereby pardon Hunter Biden on the gun case in Delaware and on the tax case in California. But what's different about this one is it also says this is a full and unconditional pardon for all conduct going back to January 1 of 2014, which means Hunter Biden cannot be federally prosecuted for anything going back to 2014, and really before then, because before then is going to be precluded by the statute of limitations. And as you said before, the only historical precedent, the best historical precedent for this, is the pardon of Richard Nixon by Gerald Ford, which has similar language. But what I think is not disputable is that this is a historic act of political nepotism. This is the granting of a pardon by the president to his son. Joe Biden even says, if you really parse his statement, he acknowledges that a substantial part of this is because Hunter Biden is his son. And that will land Joe Biden on a historic list that he probably doesn't want to be a part of, along with Bill Clinton, who pardoned his half-brother Roger Clinton, along with Donald Trump, who pardoned Charles Kushner, who is the father of his own son-in-law, Jared Kushner. So I'm sure Joe Biden understands the historic implications of what he's done, and now he's earned his way onto that list.
So there you go. And I mean, Nate Silver, he did a silver thing, silver thing, a similar thing. Put this up on the screen. I don't even have jet lag as an excuse here, guys. Put this up on the screen. I'm having like sympathetic jet lag, I guess. I discussed here how I voted for Harris despite feeling like Democrats indulged in a lot of bad behavior that voters were rational to publish. After the White House lying about the Hunter pardon, I'm not sure how much more I can tolerate. And look, I totally get people objecting to the Hunter pardon. Personally, I don't really care one way or another. What I am disgusted by is Joe Biden being perfectly happy to violate the norms when it serves himself and his family, but not when, say, it might deliver a $15 minimum wage to workers, or in any other way he could violate those norms in this, last lame duck days. But he chooses to only use it to benefit himself. That's my, really significant objection here. But it's just funny from Nate because, I mean, number one, as others have pointed out, like, Trump really aggressively abused this pardon powers with Kushner and Roger Stone and Steve Bannon, Dinesh D'Souza, like anyone who was sympathetic to him whatsoever, or even some people who apparently like paid to get their cases in front of Trump. He just was happy to dole them out. So if this is your line with Joe Biden, like, where was all that concern with Trump? But also, like, Joe Biden has done so much worse during his administration, and Gaza being the obvious example. But I would also put Sagar, Ukraine, and thwarting that peace deal and allowing that slaughter to go on. And so that's where the DC morality just makes no sense to me whatsoever. That this would be the reason why you think his legacy would be tarnished. Like, there are 85 other vastly more important moral failings of Joe Biden before you even start to talk about this one.
On an objective basis, politically massive failure. Again, judge him by his own rhetoric. He ran to defeat Donald Trump forever. The Dark Brandon meme. That's right. He was not successful in that. He was a narcissist all the way through. The world is on fire. Arguably, the destruction of the quote-unquote rules-based international order really was struck under Joseph R. Biden.
No doubt about it.
It's easy. I mean, I read a lot of history, so I'm used to thinking about things at like 100,000-foot level, like strategy-wise. When you write the historical period of the Joe Biden presidency, what will they point to? The invasion of Ukraine, the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Even though I supported it, I mean, it's very clear that it was executed in such a way that it turned the American public away. The Israeli war and the conflagration and explosion, continuation of American interventionism in the Middle East. And then you have that with the political failure of this president. On top of the economic trends are arguably worse in this country at any time since 2008, which sounds crazy to say if you talk to an economist, but we're going to talk about a little bit in our show about home prices and about inflation. I mean, the level of domestic consternation has really no precedent since the 2008 period, and really more analogous to the early 1900s. So Biden will go down in history like people who you barely think about, you know, from the early 1900s.
Yeah.
Like Calvin Coolidge, you know, Silent Cal. People don't really think, libertarians like him, that's about it. You know, he's mostly a footnote. He'll be one of those folks. And,
I think he'll be, I mean, not even as positive as Jimmy Carter, because at least with Carter, people feel like, well, he's a good guy.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
he redeemed himself because of his lifelong service.
And there are also things, I mean, you know, Camp David Accord. Like, there are things you can point to during the Carter administration. I think Biden has a much worse legacy, ultimately, than Jimmy Carter does. And in a sense, it's a shame because there are things he did that were a break with the neoliberal order that were important. You know, the continuation of the China tariff policy, important. The implementation of industrial policy in a way that we haven't seen in decades in this country, important. The aggressive, you know, the antitrust, the sort of repositioning and reinvigoration of antitrust policy, very important. Most pro-labor president of my lifetime. No one's going to remember any of that because of how overwhelming the foreign policy devastating failures were. You're right, Saagar, about he has done more destruction to the quote-unquote rules-based order than anyone, I mean, than Donald Trump could have ever dreamed, because he's someone who claimed to believe in this and to uphold it. And so he was in, you know, a vastly more significant position to be able to completely undermine it, and that's exactly what he did.
Well, on institutions and rule of law as well, it will be fine.
That's right.
You know, people will always write about the Trump lawfare and about what happened to him, but now as part of that will be, you know, that Joe Biden, in his pardon of his son, used the same rhetoric and justification that Donald Trump will to escape his own charges and problems. So, you know, look, you can't blame Americans for saying you all are full of shit and for just pressing the red button. Ultimately, that was the vote for Donald Trump. And honestly, America was more red-pilled even than I thought that they were, in terms of they're like, I don't want to hear this democracy shit. I don't want to hear any of this anymore. I can't deal with this. You know, and there's something just so nauseating about Biden and the preening and the entire Kamala Harris campaign that they just said, I'm done. You know, I'm willing to take a chance, you know, roll the dice, United 93, whatever metaphor that you want to have here. And so that is one that will be the ultimate legacy of Joseph R. Biden. I honestly think he's a much worse president than Obama. I think, you know, I mean, second only to George W. Bush. To me, you know.
And before Gaza, on economics, I was one of the people out there making the case Joe Biden is better than Barack Obama on economics, but you cannot look at the totality of this administration and say that he is, you know, better in any significant respect at this point.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.